Tell us about your background, Kam.
So I still teach at Hancock College. I'm down to part-time now, working towards retirement. But my background educationally is I started out as an art major, a printmaking major, a long time ago, and got a degree in fine arts. Then I went back thinking that I needed more technical training and got a degree in graphic design, which I'm still interested in, and I teach from time to time. But ultimately, while I was taking classes in graphics, I had to take some photo classes, and it immediately struck me that that's the thing that I really liked the best, and allowed me to work through ideas really quickly, because photography is such an immediate art form that I could come up with a concept of something I wanted to try or someplace I wanted to visit. I could make photographs and bring them back. So I got a master's degree from the University of Illinois in photography and MFA in photography. I taught at the University of Illinois as a graduate student, which also surprisingly let me know that I really liked teaching. And even though I'd always been a very shy person, I didn't mind standing in front of a class of kids, which was a shock to me. But then I went on to teach at Butte College in Northern California in Chico for 6 years. I moved back down to California and taught for a couple of years at Hancock. And then I taught high school for 10 years, taught all the art classes: ceramics, photography, multimedia, painting, drawing, sculpture. And then I left that after 10 years because it was becoming too comfortable, and worked on some book projects and a lot more of my own work. And now I'm back teaching half-time at Hancock, as I said, and I still enjoy it, and I'll do that as long as it brings me pleasure. So, critiquing work, talking about photographs is a big part of my job every day. And I will start by saying that, when I'm talking about students' work, often it's their first class right out of high school. And so it's much more difficult to find things to talk about sometimes with their photographs, but I was really pleasantly happy to see the high quality of work that comes out of your group. So
thank you.
Thanks.
I don't know if that's enough.
Oh yeah,
That's plenty. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So
okay.
you know that we're going to be presenting all of the images that you've seen, and one by one we'll run through them all, and then we'll go back. Each one you can give a score and give any comments about it, and then we will go back and announce who had the highest points. If you have any that tied, we will give you an opportunity to break that tie. So don't fret.
I've already essentially done all that. So
perfect. Okay, excellent. Okay.
But the first time through, I don't make any comments. We're just going to look at the pictures. Is that right?
Exactly. We're going to look at them.
All right.
All right, we're going to start with color. Who's going to be the scorekeeper for color?
I'll be scorekeeper.
Okay, you got your sheet?
Is your recording on, Greg?
Yes, it is.
Good.
Yeah, don't pull a Jim.
How many color images are there?
There's 23.
23.
Quite a few.
Okay, come on. There we go.
What I do, it doesn't seem very good, I guess. Fuck.
Watch your microphones, people.
I guess I don't be able to see these no matter what I do. My glasses don't seem to help me.
Hey, Ed, mute yourself.
Keep it to yourself.
That's better.
Okay, we're back at the first image.
This is titled Getting the Toes Wet.
All right, is this where I'm on?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, so am I talking about it first and then giving you my score, or is that?
Yes.
That's fine.
All right, so getting the toes wet. So one of the things about pictures one of the things I think about when I'm looking at a photograph is how long it holds my attention. So when I first saw this, a very pleasing image. I could imagine myself at the beach, but it's one of those pictures that for me, I wrapped up really quickly. So I didn't really need to look at it again. I kind of had taken all the information from it, and there wasn't a lot more to give. So, you know, revisiting it kind of didn't give me anything additional from it. I liked the 50-50, you know, half the real legs and half the reflection in the water. It's sharp where it needs to be. I, in a way, wanted to see maybe a little bit more of the detail in the clothing. I just needed something else maybe to look at. But you know, it's a good use of shallow depth of field. It's pretty balanced composition. It seems like it's almost centered, but slightly more space on the left. And that doesn't really bother me too much, but those are just things I'm looking at as I'm noticing the picture. The exposure seems adequate, seems right. And let's see what else for that. But really that's it for me. It's like I enjoyed it, but it just it didn't have a lot of additional information for me. And so I gave this one a 15 overall. So
15?
Yep, 15.
Okay, let's see. We're having problems here today. Come
Okay.
on. There we go.
Okay, the title is A Good Moment.
Good moment. So my favorite part of this picture is that beautiful pattern of shadow and light in the foreground, that kind of swirling, kind of curved shape that's right in the beginning. I like the feel of it, of course, because I live around here and I know that area and I know what it feels like to be out there at the beach and the smell of it. So it brought that back to me. The one thing that well, I shouldn't say bothered me, because I think all the photographs that I looked at have really positive aspects, but Morro Rock, is such a beautiful thing. And it becomes, in this space, because there's very little detail in the rock itself. So I often imagine myself standing there on a day like we're looking at, when the sun is out, beautiful light. I know that the rock would have been in shadow, but I know that I also would have been able to see some of the detail in it. It's such a big, dominant part of this photograph that I wish I could at least see some of the texture or the lines. And I can just barely make out some information in there. But I wish I would have liked to see maybe a little bit more information in that part of it. It's also kind of heavily weighted to the left side, the image. But I really love the curve of the beach there. And as I said, that dappled light in the foreground, the light kind of skimming across the surface of the sand, I thought was quite beautiful. And I gave this one a 16 overall.
At the boardwalk.
At the boardwalk. It's interesting because it certainly is one that is, when you bring it up, it pops out because of the color. But I immediately was trying to figure out the green wall because it almost seemed like it was just too solid. It seemed like it was a painted stripe across there. And I kept looking at that And I was really focused on the orange and the green and the patterns. And I can see, that there's some interesting shadows and some kind of confusing shadows right below the bench. There's like a curved shadow that doesn't seem to relate to anything. But the interesting thing about this one for me is I spent so much time looking at that. As soon as I looked up, there's really a pretty spectacular shot of the beach because of this, band of seagulls across the top, the people on the beach. And actually, that's the part of it that I enjoyed the most. The colors really popped out, but that was kind of more interesting. So there was something about the green that didn't, I don't know, it just looked somehow odd, as if it had been added in, and I don't know if it's photoshopped at all or if there's some part of it that's changed, but that's the part that struck out. But I like the colors, but as I said, the top part of the picture was actually the more interesting part for me. And let's see what else I said. Yeah, I think that's it. And I gave this one a 15.
Beeline to nectar.
Okay. So this one, it's obviously a spectacularly sharp image and really technically just remarkable. And one of the things I was trying to figure out, so I've been doing a lot of stacking with my students in the digital classes, and because when you get that, very hard to break at the field. So I was trying to figure out how the bee and the entire rose, foreground to background, when it's that close, could be all dark. And I don't know technically how any of these are done. So I started to wonder whether the bee was from one photo and the rose was from another. And I couldn't tell. It's also, it's a little bit to the left because it seems like a composition where you had some choice about how to move it around. So I'm not sure why everything is pushed over and leaning kind of off to the left side of the picture. It's a really spectacularly done photograph. It's not something, again, that kind of holds my attention for a long time, but I technically just really pretty amazing. And let's see if there's anything else I put there. So I guess one of my big questions when I'm looking at it, not necessarily for the photographer, was, how was it put together? Is this a straight one shot, or is this something that's combined? Not that makes it better or worse. It just is a different way of putting it together. So this one I gave a 17.
Forest of the Entombed Pirates.
Okay. So I have an interesting conversation again with my students often about, I have students who go out and they'll go out and they'll find a graffiti or a mural somewhere, and they'll take a beautiful photograph of it. And I'm always asking the question: is it, whose artwork is it? So are you photographing somebody's artwork? Are you changing it in a way? Does the way you photographed it make it better or worse or more interesting, or does it bring your own creativity into it? So to me, one of the things that was remarkable about this is whoever carved this. It's a kind of a remarkable piece of carving within there. Well, and I will say that I also was trying to figure out, well, maybe they pasted that in there, maybe it was from somewhere else, but then it looks like the whole thing is carved. And the truth is, then I started thinking, should it be reversed? Should the face be the thing that kept the wood color, the kind of richness of the wood in the background would have been, monochrome. So I mean, it's an interesting piece, but I keep asking myself, do I like it because whoever carved it made an interesting piece, or does the way it was photographed make it better or more interesting, or change it enough to make it kind of unique as a photographic image? And let me see what I've got here. Yeah, and I'm not sure why it was changed to black and white. Yeah, they're just all those questions that brought up. Let's see. Yeah, I think technically, nice job of selecting that part out and really making it blend in, if that's what was done. I'm not sure. And so this one has a 15.
Harrier.
Yeah, another one that's just a remarkably sharp picture. And I have never done this kind of, wildlife or bird photography. And to me, it's just a remarkable thing to be able to capture something like this This clearly and clear right where it needs to be. And I don't know if there's, some sharpening going on or other things, but regardless, it's spectacular because that eye that's looking out at us and the position of the beak and the tail, which is super sharp, and the wings are just slightly softer, but I can imagine that from motion. There's just enough color and tone and texture in the background so that I get a sense that it's outside in the wild and these are, fields and trees. But it's just the position of it. I can't imagine how many shots it would take to get that perfect moment and how accurate you would have to be with focus. And it's not over sharpened. It's not, hyper sharpened or anything like that. It's just quite beautifully done. So this is, yeah. So let's see here. Also, just, and this is something that you all, I'm sure, know and have thought about, but, when you have an image like this where there's something moving through the frame, you always want to leave a little extra space in front of it. So as if it's got space to move out. You wouldn't ever want to frame it with more space behind it because it feels like whatever it is going to run right into the edge. So there's just that fact that there's some breathing room on the left also helps this picture. And I gave this one an 18.
Life is but a dream.
So, yeah, there's so much, and again, with each one of these photographs, I could find lots of good things and always something that I feel like I could change around or alter. One of my first questions always is, what's this person doing in the field? And I know that's kind of a funny question to ask, but, she's really well dressed in an interesting outfit, but she's in the middle of this field. So I thought, well, what is she doing there? Like, is this a fashion shoot? Is it about the outfit? What is the image meant to show me, or what's it for, really? The hair, I thought, well, maybe it's wind, maybe it's the wind blowing the hair, but then you look at everything else in the photograph and nothing is blowing. So it seems clear that, that the action was her throwing her head back to capture it, which actually it's quite effective and interesting, and it's a beautiful pattern of her hair. I will say it kind of almost makes my nose itch because I see that hair going right across her nose. The light is quite beautiful, that soft overcast light. And I do like the blur of the vignette that was used on it. I think it's maybe a little bit overdone, a little too obvious, maybe making that slightly subtler so we don't, because I immediately see the blurred edges and I can see, where the blur was done. And maybe a little bit too obviously. Sometimes in these situations you can't control everything, but I often find that when people are photographing people against a background, the ocean or the hills or some place where there's a horizon line, it's awkward if you have the horizon line almost at the top of the head. So you either want it, I think usually you want it above the horizon, and it's sort of somewhat kind of awkward that the line of the hills and her head's below that. And maybe if it went up a little higher, although there's not much sky. Again, I like the colors. I like the composition of it. I love the light. It's sharp where it needs to be, right on her. But as I said, those other things, just, it asks a lot of questions for me. Let's see, what does it say? Yeah, so I wondered, is this a fashion ad or what exactly is it for? And I gave this one a 16.
Oaks and fog.
I think it's lovely light. It's a really inviting and serene scene. And as I said, we all are from around here and we see those beautiful oaks. And if you are up in the morning and you drive somewhere, you see that beautiful fog that sits inside our little valleys. And I really appreciate that there's those thistles or whatever those plants are that are right in the foreground, because it really puts me in there, because I feel like they're close enough that I could actually kind of reach out and touch them. It's interesting because I'm assuming they look like they're oaks, but the leaves are sort of whitish, and I don't really often see that. And I don't know if that was some kind of a shift in the color, if that's just the fog, but they almost seem kind of a little infrared. I don't think it is, but they had that kind of a feel of some strange change in the light. rather than having green leaves. There's sort of this white color. It's, you know, when I look at a photograph like this, as I said, it's a very inviting picture. It makes me feel like I'm there. But, you know, often when you see a picture like this, if you think you're trying to enter the picture, like I feel those thistles, but to me, it's almost like, and it doesn't change or diminish this picture at all. But like, I feel like I want to walk in there, but I know that I can't walk straight. I have to walk over to the left and then walk around through a path that way. So it's not immediately like kind of letting me into the scene. I think it's a beautiful composition. I think it's really well crafted and carefully put together. And there's just enough shadow detail. Yeah. And maybe it's the time of that we're living in, but it just gave me this kind of calmness, and I really felt good. And I gave this one an 18.
On the patio.
On the patio. So, you know, the things that I liked about it, interesting diversity of patterns, lots of different patterns. The patterns of the different buildings, the tree or the branches up in the upper right-hand corner, the leaves, the dappled sunlight going across there. But one of the things for me is what did the photographer see that they really wanted me to see? Like, is there something specific? You know, they're saying, here it is, look at this. And I'm not sure. It's not really the chair. It kind of seems to be the whole picture, but I'm not quite sure exactly what the photographer saw in this moment, in this spot. There's a guy back with a mask on in the background, which seemed a little distracting. And it's kind of an architectural shot. And I know you can't change these things, but then I started to notice the details up in the window. There's some kind of disheveled curtains up in the window. These are all things you can't change. So as an architectural photograph, you know, it has a lot of really good things going on. The vertical lines stay vertical. They don't, you know, change that perspective that you get from a photographic lens. And I don't know if that was done post, but really done well. And as I said, they're really interesting shapes and lines and patterns, and it's sharp where it needs to be, well exposed. But I really just wasn't quite sure what it was the photographer wanted me to see. So I gave this one a 15.
Red Rock Shadows.
It's kind of a dizzying image, as what I put in my note, dizzying tilting of the frame. And I think, you know, I often encourage my students, or do, to try all kinds of things. Turn your camera, make a vertical, make a horizontal, make a diagonal picture. But then there are times when, you know, why? You know, does it make it a better picture, or is it not a good picture? So you turn it, you know, diagonally. And I think those shadows and the direction of it, that makes sense why that was done. But it's almost like these two lines that go off into the corner, as if they're leading me somewhere. But when I get back up to that corner, there's really not a lot to look at there. And I realize as a photographer, you're probably trying to keep your hands in so that the shadow doesn't show you as a photographer. But if they were doing something more, you know, kind of interesting with the shapes of their arms or something else. So interesting long shadows. I do love the patterns in the rocks, especially that lower right-hand corner, really pretty spectacular, kind of etched away rocks. So let's see if I put anything else in here. Clear, sharp, and well exposed. And okay. And I gave that one a 15 as well, which I seem to be giving a lot of 15s. My students think I'm a hard grader, so I don't know if that's true or not. So.
Serenity.
All right. So for me, it was immediately, I thought it's just too dark for me. And as I said with an earlier picture, I imagine myself standing there as the sun's going down. So the sun's still above the horizon. It's not really blocked by clouds. And even though there wouldn't have been a lot of detail within those trees or the grass, there would have been some. I would have been able to see some. And that's just what I wanted a little bit more of. So I don't know if it was, I'm assuming it was probably a pretty good exposure. So there's probably some more detail to bring out. And it doesn't have to be a lot, but just a little bit of texture in the trees, and even just lightening up that whole sunset in the background, I think a little bit. Also, I think lightening up would help that little band of ocean that we see and bring out that blue a little bit more and make that color a little bit more effective. I do really like the shape and the silhouette of the branches there against the sky, between the leaves up here and the dark down below. There's that beautiful area where there's these really elegant branches coming up. Like the composition, I like the way it's put together. I just think it's too dark, and I think that lightening it up would really bring out a lot more. And this one also has a 15.
A straight line, please.
Okay, so where are we? So I will say, one of the reasons I enjoyed going through these pictures is it was just nice to look at pictures, and some of them really just made me smile immediately. And this is one of those. Just love that line of pelicans. It's a happy picture. It's it's bright, and they're well exposed. They're sharp where they need to be, and it's an interesting pattern of them. And I think kind of an effective way of cropping it. I am always, when I see something cropped that much, I'm always wondering like what else was there. The things that I think could be improved are, one, it's the line at the bottom is not quite, and I know even in the scene it wasn't, that's not the way the horizon line went, but it feels a little awkward that it's just slightly to the left, like the left side is just slightly less or lower. And it's sort of, also, and these are things that you can't really help. I found myself looking at the birds and the other things in the background, which are not so interesting. Of course, we could Photoshop those out, but I'm not necessarily a big believer in doing that. Anyway, I think the picture is successful in what it's trying to do. It brought a smile to my face. And let's see if there's anything else I put. Sharp where it needs to be, slightly awkward, tilt, and a few distracting things in the foreground and background. So this one has a 15.
Kuyama Storm.
Yeah. Again, it's a quite elegant picture of this beautiful rainbow, and I think it's a good composition. It's beautiful light. It's one of those pictures where it feels like it's maybe over sharpened a little bit, or over amped up, or maybe it's something to do with saturation, but it just seems a little too heightened from reality. I feel like it would, if I was standing there, it might feel softer. And it's interesting because this is, I don't mind, the kind of rusty fence and all that stuff, but it's really different. It's like, so the top half is this sort of a beautiful, unspoiled, hill with the rainbow. And then if I just look at the bottom half, it's this kind of old rusty fences beat up and some tire tracks and like a puddle from something in the ground. So it's kind of got these two things going on. And let's see what else I have. Yeah, I said it's kind of idyllic in the background and a bit messy in the foreground. So to me, it feels, and I don't know if it was sharpened or heightened with saturation, but those are the things that I didn't like. So, but again, when the picture came up, I thought, yeah, that's, it's a well done picture, well thought out and well crafted. And let's see what I gave this. This is a 16.
Double window view.
Yeah. It's one where I spent more time trying to figure it out than kind of enjoying the picture. So at first I thought, well, this must be just an interesting reflection of a building that's behind me. And then I kept trying to figure out, how it was put together. And then I thought, well, is this just something that was inset in there, like a window within a window? And so rather than looking and saying, wow, there's interesting, shapes and colors, and the tree in the reflection is quite beautiful. And I was trying to figure it out. So for me, that's problematic when I'm spending a lot more time trying to decipher the image rather than really just looking at it. It's a little soft on the outside edge. It's a little bit out of focus, the frame around the window and the blue boards across there. So I'm still not positive how it's done, but I'm assuming that image was taken from somewhere else and kind of put in the window. And I'm not sure why, because I think that reflection of the big tree is beautiful. So I don't know if you guys will give me an answer when we're done with some of these, because some of these I'd like to know, exactly what was done. So let's see. So this one has a 15. All right.
He's not hearing what her face is saying.
So to me, maybe it's because I enjoy a nice pub or bar, that the kind of warm light coming from this place was really inviting to me. Maybe I'm getting thirsty now too. But it's just kind of a simple picture, but I love that the couple they're talking. You caught a good moment where they're really interacting with each other, even though there's that windows, line in between them. And I like the title, which kind of led us to think something about the image. It's sharp enough that I can, read all the signs, and it's also a picture that is indicative of our times, because there's that, we can see the wearing a mask is required on the upper right-hand corner. And to me, actually, it was just a charming picture, and I think well done, well framed, and it's one of the pictures that I just spent more time looking at for that reason. So warm and inviting, and we're a little bit voyeuristic, but I think that's okay. Beautiful light on the subjects, and just enough detail. So I gave this one, and where am I? 19.
Hope.
Yeah. So I love the pattern, and I like the title, because I did visit the butterfly, place up in Pismo a couple years ago when it was a really bad year, and that that whole thing about the potential loss of the monarch butterflies really affected me. It's a beautiful overall pattern. In fact, I could see this as a pattern on something beautiful, like a curtain or something, because it's just this kind of overall texture and pattern, which is quite beautiful and subtle. It's not too bright. As a photograph, I think the thing that it lacks is really, I'm not sure exactly what to look at. It's too overall, which isn't necessarily all bad. I mean, that's what the picture's about. And it includes the way that they blend into their background. But maybe the idea that there's not really a focus to it didn't work quite so well for me. But still, I found it a nice picture. So I gave this a 16.
Silver Lake.
Yeah. So beautiful, idyllic shot. Seems to be sharp all the way through. I felt like some of the stumps and things right in the foreground on the left maybe didn't seem quite sharp, at least, and I didn't blow it up to look at it, but they just seem like they're slightly out of focus, but that may just be my eyes or my perception of it, because it really seems very technically well done. It does seem to be weighted. If I kind of hold my hand up about maybe blocking off a third on the right hand side, there's a lot more going on there, and then the far right is kind of doesn't have much going on, so it feels like it's really heavily visually weighted to the left hand side of the composition rather than the right. And so somehow that it's weighted a little bit too much for my taste on that left. And I do like the branches and things in the foreground, but they do definitely blend in with the back, with the dirt and the color behind them. So you kind of lose some of the definition of those things, and I don't know how you fix that or change the angle. It's really a quite lovely, serene shot of this isolated and beautiful place. And let's see. So this one got a 16.
Sun and Steps.
Okay. So again, it's one of those pictures where I was asking myself, what was it that the photographer wanted me to look at? So we've got this staircase going down, which is quite elegant lines. We've got that little peak of sun, which, you know, got just in the right place to get that little sparkle of light coming out. And then we're looking at the buildings and the reflections in it. And those things I think are all, you know, well exposed and they look good, but I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to look at. And the truth is that a lot of those lines draw me right into the middle where the trees are. And the trees are the one place where I have very little or almost no detail. And it's another one of those pictures where I imagine in the original version of it, there's enough information there that you could really bring out some of that green on those trees. It would also be a nice contrast to all this kind of hard-edged concrete steel. And we've got this little area of green down below. Also, I was curious why the bottom right was so dark. It seemed unnaturally dark, like it had been burned in somehow, and maybe to keep our attention up, but it seemed like too much, like we've lost some of the detail down there. And this one is, let's see, Sun and Steps, 15.
Gardnerville fog.
So, you know, when I go out for a drive or when I'm driving to Hancock, sometimes in the morning, I look off, you know, I leave Los Alamos and I see that beautiful fog that kind of hangs in the valleys, and as it's starting to burn off, and it's just kind of like a wave sitting there. And to me, this just had a really evocative feel for some of the things I love about living out here. Also, some of the things that I love about driving. And I really love a road trip. I love to get in my car and go somewhere. I especially like driving in bad weather because I'm in my car listening to what I want to listen to and my heater's on and I'm fine and it's cold or snowy or whatever it is outside. So it kind of reminded me of road trips in a way. I think the thing that kind of took it to another level for me was the headlights coming towards me, and that little spark of light is so important to this picture for me. It's also, it feels like what it would be like to stand there. It doesn't feel oversaturated. It doesn't feel too light. It doesn't feel too dark. I can see information in the foreground in the deep shadow areas, but it feels like it would on that day. I would say the things that maybe bother me a little bit is it looks like either the ridge of the hills in the background was maybe burned in or changed because it seems to have like a little dark top to it, as if you're trying to burn in the sky, which is a really hard thing to not, you know, have a problem with. But the truth is, this one just spoke to me. I would say the other thing that I thought of was that for me, is my description is of me, you know, loving to drive some places in my car. So I wondered if you would have stood in the road instead of on the side of the road. That's you know, neither here nor there, but just one of the things that made me think like I would be in the car moving forward rather than standing on the road. So, but I will say, for whatever reason, this picture just really struck me, and I gave this a 20.
I'm waiting for leftovers.
So beautifully sharp, right where it needs to be. This is one of those where the fact that it's way off to the left of the composition bothered me a little bit. And you know, we can't, one of the things as photographers is we can't move things around in our scene, obviously, always. We can't move them and put them where we want, because what I do like is that kind of beautiful soft pattern that happens behind this blue jay in the background there. But I feel like it's like a little bit too much up against the edge there. The other thing is, you know, is that it seems like the texture on the bird is quite beautiful, and the light, the eye, which seems to be where my focus goes, I try to just lighten up right around that, just dodge that out just slightly, so we see that little glint in the bird's eye just pop out a little bit, just so we, you know, we see a little bit more of that. I realized that was in shadow, but of course we're always in photography from the beginning manipulating our pictures to make them, you know, what we want them to be. So, and let's see, this one is, I'm waiting for leftover 16.
Jubilation.
So it's a beautifully sharp image, but it's another one where, for me, I spent a lot of time trying to figure the picture out. I mean, I know that that's its mouth, this sea otter. I'm assuming that's what it is. And then I'm assuming that's his nose, but it's a really interesting nose and kind of odd shapes. It's not, doesn't seem symmetrical. And I don't see the eyes. And then I was trying to figure out if that was another otter in the foreground, if there's two of them there, or if that's one otter and that's part of it. And I see some seaweed there, but I couldn't quite make it out. And if I kind of squint, it just becomes this kind of interesting blob, hairy shape with a mouth. I was fascinated by it. I really, looked at that mouth for a long time. And I think technically this is not an easy thing to capture that sharp right where it needs to be. So it wasn't that I didn't like the image. I just spent a lot of time trying to figure it out. So this one has a 15.
Monarchs.
So, and it really definitely, when you talked about impact, this one, as soon as it came up, the colors are just quite beautiful. That blue against the orange is just pretty spectacular. And then I really did start to look at, carefully at things like the composition. So I'm looking at all the edges, and they're just quite perfect in terms of butterfly, just about the same distance all the way around. It just seems to encompass the right amount of space and the right amount of butterflies so that we can really look carefully at them. And often, you don't really get a center of attention, but there's that one butterfly that's about 2/3 of the way up, and about in the middle, it has its leaves, its wings almost perfectly out to the side. And to me, that kind of gave me a focus point for it. It just, for whatever reason, it just really had this immediate impact for me. Let's see, where's that one? Monarchs. This one I give a 19.
Sue's Christmas Dreams Closet.
All right. It's interesting to look at these and maybe I spent too much time looking at all these pictures because I went through once and I scored them all. I went through again and I scored them all differently. And I think on any given day, I might change my mind about which ones I think are the strongest ones. And I think my scoring, it's fine, but it's really hard to kind of incrementally judge things, especially when they're all, different in their own way and different kinds of subject matter. So let's see. So this is another one where I think this is really a well-crafted picture. And I think kind of craft is the key word here, because it's another one where I think as a photographer, you've done a really great job of capturing clearly and beautifully somebody else's artwork. Like whoever put this window together made this beautiful thing. And if I was the person who had done that, I would want your photograph of it, because you really did a great job of showing this thing beautifully, beautifully framed, beautifully exposed, and really nicely put together. But again, that question is, whose artwork is it? So, and the way you photographed it is certainly crafted, really in a beautiful way, but are you adding or changing it in a way that your photograph, sort of becomes the important object rather than what you're looking at? So, but I think, again, really well done. And this one is a 15 as well.
Okay, then. We have a tie between number 15 and number 22, both 19s, Greg.
So here, I'll tell you what my choices were. So number 19, Gardnerville Frog is my number 1.
Yes.
Number 22, Monarchs is my number 2.
Whoa, you're very organized.
Number 15, He's Not Hearing What Her Face Is Saying, is number 3.
Yes.
Number 6, Harrier, is an honorable mention.
Mm-hmm.
And number 8, Oaks and Fog, is an honorable mention.
Radio.
Cool beans, boss.
First time we've had this happen.
Very organized.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm a teacher. I've got to be somewhat organized.
Okay, here are the results. Getting the Toes Wet by Penny Powell. A Good Moment by Harold. I think it's Litweiler. Is that right,
That's
Harold?
correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you. At the Boardwalk by Eddie Powell. Beeline to Nectar by Cheryl Decker.
I like it, Cheryl.
Are we allowed to comment now? It's
Yeah.
that is-
I would
that is-
appreciate it.
Okay, it's not a composite image. It was taken while I had COVID over Christmas in my garden. And it is sharpened though with topaz.
It's beautiful. Yeah, it's a beautiful
Very
shot.
nice, Cheryl.
Forest of the Entombed Pirates by Gregory Doudna.
St. Simon's Island, Georgia.
Harrier and Honorable Mention by Richard Russ.
Nicely done, Richard.
Yes.
Richard, really nice.
Life is But a Dream by Elaine Calvert.
Like that, Elaine.
Thank you.
Oaks and Fog and Honorable Mention by Chuck Ubley.
I just wanted to mention that you were spot on about that being infrared. It's a
Okay.
combination of infrared and then a color image, and the infrared was used as a luminosity layer.
Nice. Nicely done.
Interesting.
On the Patio by Alan Upshaw. Is that Chicago?
Yeah, it was.
Okay. Red Rock Shadows by Tony Martindale. Serenity by Jeannie Sparks.
Very nice, Jeannie.
Very nice.
A Straight Line, Please by Harold Lightweiler.
I like the cropping.
Mhm.
Fuyama Storm by Cheryl Decker.
Nice.
Beautiful, Cheryl.
Yeah, Drama Light.
Yeah, love it.
Double Window View by Penny Powell. And that's looking through the back of a house that's empty, that the other window on the other side shows the view of the barn. And it was the time of day where I got the reflection of the trees behind me on the window face.
Yeah. So it's not straight at all. It's just a straight shot.
Backward looking shot.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Great shot.
Yeah. No, really fascinating. So
Very, very good capture, Penny.
Yeah, good seeing.
It is.
Thank you. He's Not Hearing What Her Face is Saying in Third Place by Gregory Doudna.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. I
Good
like
job.
it.
Image.
Thanks. I took it from across the street at Mother's Tavern.
Ah,
And I saw him take it.
Yes. Jim was.
I get some
down
credit there.
Hope by Jeannie Sparks.
it's a nice one.
Yeah, was that this year? Jeannie?
Jeannie?
Had to unmute. Yeah, that was a couple of weeks ago, I guess.
Oh, man, I gotta go. All right.
Yeah, I gotta
Good.
go.
Yeah, there's a
quickly,
lot of
they go.
butterflies this year.
I heard that there were 200,000 approximately this year. Last year, there were 2,000.
Yeah,
Right.
I went, and
It's
there's
26,000 this year, or 22,000.
Well, the 200,000 wasn't necessarily at this place. They're talking about,
Yeah, I mean, they're all over the place.
Yeah, at this place, it was like 26,000, I believe is what they said.
That's
There
good.
had been more than 100,000 before, and decades ago at
Yeah.
this place.
Well, many decades ago, there were like 10 million, so.
Right.
This is Silver Lake by Chuck Ubley.
Chuck, where's Silver Lake?
It's off Highway 88 by about 50 miles south of Tahoe.
It's a beautiful spot. Boy.
You know, we used to have a cabin there. We just sold it this year. It's been in the family since the 40s.
That's the cabin you showed us a photo of, Chuck?
Yeah, been going there my whole life, so it's like a second home, but it's kind of weird not to have the cabin anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sun and Steps by Alan Upshaw. Gardnerville Fog in First Place by Chuck Ubley.
Nice
Nice
one.
one.
Yeah, that's very cool, Chuck. Very,
Nice
very
job.
cool.
I'm Waiting for Leftovers by Harold Litweiler. Jubilation by Jeannie Sparks.
Is that a puppy in it or a pup on its belly?
You know, I think
Looks like
that's just his flippers, or I'm not sure. Yeah, I think it's
His
flippers or
legs.
something. His legs. Yeah, and it's just one otter.
Okay. The mouth, open mouth, almost looks like a chimpanzee or orangutan.
I almost I thought of a name for it after I sent it. I'm going like agony or ecstasy. Ecstasy. Like, which was he really expressing?
There ought to be another one, though.
I do
Bad
have other.
fun, Jim. Bad fun.
I like his fun. I actually have lots of other otters.
All right, moving on. Monarchs in Second Place by Cheryl Decker.
Beautiful
Nice one,
caption.
Cheryl.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. This one was also taken about 2 weeks ago out by Pismo.
I love.
Did you have a?
see?
Is this the sunlight or is it a flash or?
Yeah.
What?
Oh,
Is it?
Uh-oh. There you are.
We're losing her.
Yeah, Cheryl's in South Carolina or someplace, so they speak a different language right now. I love the fact that you've got the antennae showing up in all of these different butterflies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty remarkable. Yeah.
Okay, and the final one, Sue's Christmas Dreams Closet by
Yeah.
Gregory Doudna.
Great title.
Okay, does anybody need to take a break before we go to monochrome?
Yeah, let's.
Okay.
Just take a break for about 5 minutes, or 3 minutes, or whatever.
I just want to tell the judge thank you. I have to go pick up my sister from the airport in a little while, so I won't be able to stay till the end. But thank you very much. I appreciate your comment and our suggestions.
Thank you. I hope they're helpful. It's kind of intimidating to talk to these wonderful photographers about their work and to try to, critique it is not an easy thing to do.
Well, I think you've been spot on. We've been learning. I think we've learned a lot from what you said, and it's especially helpful when you give us suggestions, and really appreciate it. I think you've done a wonderful job.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the comments are very good. Very good.
Okay, I'm gonna sign off. Thank you all.
Bye,
Bye,
Jeannie.
Bye.
The milk bar's empty, but my bar's open.
Oh, yeah, it's fun seeing everybody's images. Some good work.
I was serious about the idea that, often with my photo students, I'm talking about some of their very first photos ever, and they might have just taken a, really bad picture of their dog. And, you have to figure out something to say. You have to figure out something to describe. So it's much easier to talk about an accomplished group of photographers rather than people just starting out who you're trying not to discourage but you want to be honest with as well. So this is
Yeah.
easier.
Very nice for you to say that we're accomplished.
Yes. Well, one thing
Say,
that gets us
for days,
better
I don't
is
think so.
one thing that has helped us, I think, improve our photography is, the kindness of judges like you who are giving us your time and an honest critique because, we learn from suggestions on how to make it better more than if we're just told it's a pretty picture. So.
Yeah.
I was really conflicted because I had the picture of the pelicans and I didn't want to distract from the pelicans. And so, I could have had the background of the mountains and stuff in there, but I think, well, what the heck? You really don't want to have a picture of anything besides that. So that's the reason I didn't include
Yeah. No, I don't think it was a bad choice at all. But I guess it's just for me. I'm thinking about what else was in there. But I think that made perfect sense that you cropped it that way. That line of pelicans was the interesting part of that.
I really didn't do any editing as far as like taking out ducks because it really kind of bothered me too. The ducks were in there.
Yeah.
I didn't take them out. I could have taken them out. It would have been easy, but the movie does kind of distract from it a little bit. So yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
That's been a real interesting thing to deal with because in my early work, it was all film, of course. I couldn't really take things out. Of course, you can adjust the image radically, but now with digital, for all this time, I have to make those decisions about how much I'm actually willing to change a picture, what I'm willing to take out, and how honest I'm being about it. So if there's a bird in a wonderful picture that just is like this blur in the sky, how do I feel about taking that out? And how do I make a line of how far I'm willing to go to change an image? And I don't have a great answer for that, but I think we all have our own kind of version of it. But it's been kind of a challenge to decide how much I'm willing to alter a picture because I can do anything I want, right? With Photoshop.
So at some point you go from photography to graphic arts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think every viewpoint on that is, I don't think one is right or one is wrong. I think everybody has to just do what they are comfortable with themselves.
No, I agree. But I think it's a little like, when you go out to shoot, if you have 5 cameras, you don't take all 5 cameras because then you just want to make a decision about what camera you can use. Makes it easier. If you're gonna print things, you print them. Print a bunch of things the same size because it's just easier to do that. So when you're making decisions about how much to change things, it's nice to have just a thing about that's as far as I'm willing to go. I can't fake something or take a person out of this shot. And that's just I'm talking about individual choices about how much you're willing to alter it.
Right.
None of them are good or bad. It's just a matter of kind of knowing what you're willing to do or what you want to do.
Yes.
How far you're willing to go is a limit I haven't hit yet.
All right, so everybody but Cheryl's back.
I think I saw Cheryl.
Yeah, she
Cheryl's
said.
there.
Well, her video's turned off, so I don't know if that means. Well, now we're in her bathroom
Yeah.
with extra rolls of toilet paper.
Yeah, all that toilet paper.
Cheryl, are you having problems?
No, she's not on mute. Is she on mute?
I don't think she even knows we can see her. Okay, well.
Maybe the acoustics are better in there.
Should we go ahead and start sharing again?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Whoa.
How many pictures do we have?
Okay.
12.
We only have 12.
Well,
I'm not
in
able to
black
get
and
it.
white.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, it's showing the black and white images.
That's the
Okay, we're back at the first image.
This is titled Amanda with Flower Diptych.
All right. So, first of all, of course, when it came up, it's a very striking image. It's immediately, grabs your attention. But it's one of those pictures, and I should say it's one of those pictures that seems to want to tell you, to give you a message, a specific kind of story or a specific kind of message. So I spent some time kind of trying to figure that out. So obviously the flower seems to have some significance. The fact that there are two of the same image, but printed differently. And so it's the same. The left one's darker, the white one's lighter. They're both still reversed images, though. They're both still negative images. And then the flower is white in both of them, so it's been altered in one or the other and manipulated. But I couldn't quite figure out why. So immediately, it was a striking picture. And then I started to think, well, do both pictures make it better? Like, is there some reason why I need to look at both of these images? Is there some significant change? And I could see maybe if it was a negative and a positive, there would be an obvious, change in them. But the dark to a lighter one, I just wasn't sure why that happened. It's a really beautiful and interesting technique. The edges of that frame look like an old photograph or a Polaroid transfer or something like that, or a Type 55 Polaroid. But I couldn't quite figure it out. And so what else did I put here? And the flower, it's interesting, but the flower on the right is kind of the complete white flower that stands out. The one on the left, it seems like it was lightened or changed just in one part of it, and the bottom edge of it is dark, and I'm not sure why. It seems like if you're keeping the flower the same or similar, that you would want the complete thing to be light. And I debated whether I should say this or not, but I couldn't help but look at the left picture, and it started to look like a face to me, with her chest as the eyes, and her belly button as the nose, and her crotch as the mouth. And now it's one of those things where once I saw it, I couldn't stop seeing this face. So, and I know it's not there. I probably shouldn't have said that, because now maybe the same thing will happen to you. Anyway, I thought it was a striking image and a really interesting technique. I still don't quite understand the reason for it, and I almost think the image on the right by itself might be a stronger image and might kind of stand out without the one on the left. So and this one gets 18.5. So, and I'll tell you afterwards why it's at 0.5. So.
Bridge over the river liner.
Yeah, it's another one of those pictures that just really had a wonderful feeling for me. Soft light, really desirable, place. It's a place I want to be, and I want to walk down and across that bridge. It's really inviting. The way the composition works with the road right at the bottom right corner and the bottom left corner, and I feel like I'm standing right there walking in. Everything's sharp. I like the slight tone to it. I don't know if it's duotone or how it's done exactly, but it's a really nice, pleasing tone, whatever the choice exactly was there. That seems to be slightly green, slightly yellow, but quite nice. And so, yeah, I liked it, and really effective framing, soft light, well exposed, and I like the tone. And this one gets a 17. Good shadow detail too.
Burial ground.
So beautiful, again, beautiful tonality and really a rich image. Tones from dark to light. In a picture, often, especially one like this where you have these walls that converge, there's a spot where your eye goes. So it kind of, if I see how I look at this picture, I see the crosses, and then I see, the wall, and then I kind of go back to that corner. But it's interesting that corner is probably the least interesting place in this picture, right, where the corners come together. The right wall is kind of fascinating because it has all that graffiti and crosses scratched in it. The crosses in the foreground are interesting. That pattern on the far left of the wall is really kind of fascinating, the way things are crumbling away. and the kind of elegant tree branches against the sky. But somehow that center of the picture is the one part of it that seems empty. I also would have liked to just, if there was, I would have liked to seen a little bit more of the texture in the crosses, because what you're showing us is tremendous detail and texture, and then those kind of key elements. In the middle cross, I feel like I can see a little bit of the wood texture. And I know those are small things, but I feel like that would help me. And I don't know how you know, because it's an interesting shot. So I don't know, maybe getting a lower angle so the crosses become kind of more prominent in the center. I still like the picture. So it's also a little bit like, it looks like it's vignetted a little bit just on the left-hand side, or dark, and the right seems a little bit lighter. And I'm not sure if that's just the way the shadows fell in that space, but it seems awkward that it's slightly dark on the left and lighter on the right. And let's see here. And this one got an 18. Egret. Egret, sorry, not egret, not regret either. It's just this is a beautiful picture. I mean, it's a striking image. It's beautifully crafted. You know, how do you capture this bird in this almost perfect position? I feel like you couldn't put it together that way. You couldn't train it to stand that perfectly. It reminded me of things like a Japanese woodcut print. It just has this really elegant, beautiful feel. I like the way the photographer has kind of diminished the texture or the tone of the water, or if there is a horizon line, I can't see it. But it has a little bit of gray tone in the background, but just really quite elegant and beautiful and nicely crafted. I like the composition, the way it's slightly off to the left with the leading line of the beak going to the right and the wing kind of going that way. So really nicely put together. So this one I have a 19. So when I looked at these the first time, go ahead.
Sorry, this is titled Fork in the City.
I'll slow it down. It's interesting because when I first brought these things up, boy, I love that sweep of that, that little shelf there going off into the distance, and there was something quite beautiful. I liked the wide look of it and the busyness of the city. And then when I look closer, I realized, that part of it, so it's really sharp on the fork, and then you've got this big sweeping line that goes back into the distance. And those kinds of lines always draw you back there. And I'm always expecting to get to something. So, you get that big sweep, and then I'm looking back here kind of at the right-hand side at those figures, and they're out of, that part of the picture is out of focus, has very shallow depth of field. So it's, in some ways, it's kind of interesting to start here, but then when I get back to the other parts of the picture, I feel like there's not much going on there. And and it's sort of an interesting, thing. And why is the fork there? And it's not messy. It doesn't look like a lot of people have been eating food along there. I'm not sure. So I like the look and the feel of the picture, and it's kind of a dynamic image. And I'm assuming that curve is actually a curve, not a wide angle. Yeah, it feels like it's a curved window. But anyway, I like the picture, but I just didn't. After I kind of saw the fork and then saw the stuff out of focus, it sort of stopped me right there. Let's see. Yeah. So this one got a 16. 16.
It's all a downward spiral.
It's often, in fact, I would say it's true in a lot of these. So if you ask me from both sets of photographs, which picture would I want to put on my wall, the color and the black and white, the ones that I might want to put on my wall maybe are ones that I didn't give a prize to. Like maybe some of those things that I would want to look at for longer, or have on my wall to look at regularly, might be different from some of the things that I gave a prize to. And this is maybe an image that, for me, like, I'm not sure I would want to put this on my wall because it's very disorienting. Like, it's not a calm picture. There's this twirl and this swirl of this wood pattern, and it's really quite beautiful wood. And I'm trying to make out what the building is and what's fallen down. and I can see a little bit of trees and other things in the background through some of the openings, but it's really a tight composition. I can't think of, I would want to move left, right, up or down any. I can't think of anything I would want to change about that. It's, you know, the sharpening that was done might be a hair too much for my liking. It just seems like it pops a little bit more than reality. But that's a really minimal thing. There's an odd and interesting, or just an odd vignetting. It's only on two sides. The right-hand side and the bottom edge have just a tiny vignette on them, and I'm not sure why. And I don't mind, you know, using kind of vignette, but I try vignette by hand. I paint my vignettes in so they're not kind of mechanical. So, and that's a really minimal thing that didn't bother me a great deal, but I did notice that as I was looking at it. And let's see here. Beautiful wood textures, tight and effective framing. Vignettes a little odd, and maybe a little over sharpened, but it really is quite a striking image. So this one got a 19.
Sequoia Slot Canyon entrance.
So it is really kind of a mysterious and I would say slightly scary picture in a way. It's like, it's not like an inviting open space behind there. It's like there's something bad that's going to go on if I, you know, climb through those trees there. I might want to see just a little bit more detail back in that background. And this is one where if I think about where my eye keeps going in this picture, you know, it seems like it would go back into that opening. But because it's so bright, my eye keeps going down to the bottom of the picture because it's that branch that looks kind of like a foot coming out is the brightest thing in there. And the truth is it kind of drew my attention down there. And then you see like little footprints and other things in there, which are in some ways are distraction. So to me, this might be one where I definitely would darken that foreground, that bottom, to bring the attention up towards that top part of the image. And let's see, yeah. And I'd maybe just like to see a little bit more of the detail. And I'm not sure if there's another tree back there that we can just barely see in the distance. And I know it's hard to capture that much tonal range way back into that shadow, but I don't know if maybe if it's there in the original picture, that could be brought out. But again, I liked it. So this one got a 15.
Yes.
So effective framing, like that's a nice, tightly, you know, framed picture. And the dappled light across it, I think works well. I think it's especially important in this to help the picture that the very top of the king has that little light on it. The tallest thing in there, that one thing that stands out right at the top has just a little sparkle of light on it. I didn't look at it very long, and maybe that's because I'm really lousy at chess, and it has not done well by me. Let's see, what else did I put down here? Yeah, it's another one of those pictures. I saw it, I understood it, I kind of wrapped up what was there, and looking at it again, it didn't kind of reveal other layers of information or other things to think about. And I know this looks like one of those bigger than life, you know, than small size chess sets where they're, you know, I don't know, a foot or two tall. I'm not sure. So I think well crafted, sharp where it needs to be, interesting light, and kind of that's where it stopped for me. So this one got a 15.
Rochelle, 2008-05-24, number 2.
That's an interesting title. All right. So it was definitely a striking image when I first saw it, and just the way her eye and mouth and nose are framed within that little opening in her garment there. Definitely effective. When I first saw it, I just looked at that and I didn't really see anything else. And then I started to look around the picture and notice that, you know, that beautiful clouds and lightness on the left-hand side. And then it was only then, after I looked at it for a couple of seconds, that I noticed that it goes dark on the right-hand side. And is going kind of into this dark side, which added kind of a layer of this, you know, idea about, you know, moving from light to dark or good to bad or day to night. And I really like that. I also like the combination of the textures of things. So there's that beautiful pattern of the grass in the lower left, the beautiful soft clouds, and that really elegant, soft looking garment that she's wearing. And then that sharpness of her eye, which just pops out of the frame in the middle, and the really, light, kind of glowing face that's looking out from that. So to me, I kept looking at it, and I looked at it quite a bit, and just kept drawing me back. And there was something mysterious and beautiful, and really nicely crafted image. So it just had a really positive effect on me. And this one got a 20.
Valentine's School.
So it's actually, to me, this is definitely, and it probably meant to be this, but it's a scary image, and a scary image because that tree just looks like an angry tree. The fence with the barbed wire across it, this building, which from the looks of things, feels like it would have been a reform school or like a place that I would not necessarily have wanted to be. The photographer obviously made some adjustments to make that sky dark by, I don't know, adjusting the blue layer or the blue part of the picture, and maybe monochrome after that. Yeah, it's a scary kind of dark image. I do think it's again, it's a little over sharpened, like things popped out a little bit too much, and it seems, although I can't see it super clearly, seems like some of the shadow detail is a little too dark, like the contrast went a little too high. And I can't remember who did this book. When I judged the books, somebody did a book about this. I don't know if it was a mental institution or a hospital, but somehow I thought maybe this was that same place. I don't know. Anyway, it's a really striking picture. It's definitely not one I want to put on my wall because it would scare me. But I think it's well done, but maybe just a couple things that would make it even better. And let's see what that one is. This is Valentine's School, 16.
When it rains, it pours.
Yeah, just a dramatic, really, spectacular shot of a rainstorm. I like the way it's cropped that long because it seems to be this big swirl of line kind of swirling all the way across, and we seem to have caught it all the way to the end of the frame. I like the little line of the hills that we can see kind of in light gray in the background. One of the things that I wasn't sure about was the line, the ocean across the bottom of it, that line of water. It's really dark, and it becomes almost, when I'm at any distance from it, it just becomes like a black line across the bottom, rather than, it doesn't have much subtlety to it or much texture to it. And I don't know if there's a way, if that's just the way the scene was because of the clouds, but if there's a way to bring out some detail in that, or to lighten that up without making it feel wonky, because it just feels like a black line there. So that bothered me, and I kept looking at that, wishing that it was just more like the little bit of ocean we can see on the far left, where we can see some texture in it. So, but I think it's a really wonderful, dramatic picture of this cloud and rainstorm, and nice. This one got a 17.
Tammy, 2012-01-08, number 4.
All right, so it's the titles that are cracking me up. So the number doesn't help me in any way, like understand the picture. So, I really, again, I like the tones and textures in this. I like whatever pattern or screen's been put over the top of it. I like the way it's composed, and a significant part of the picture, not quite a half, has that bed that's laying there. So again, it's a picture that leads to you to think that there's a story to this picture, that there's some narrative aspect to it. I did find that it kind of becomes awkward because both the figures, which is obviously the same person, are both there completely in a way, and they do kind of blend together at some point, like her hand coming across blends in a little bit, but it's almost it's too much of a one solid figure together, and I can't kind of delineate what one's doing, what the other is very easily. So it became more confusing, and I thought, well, maybe you could blur one out more than the other, so it's more of a ghost, or it's a before and after. But because they're both, especially the heads and the skin texture, is both, full resolution or full opacity, they just blend together too much. They're too together. So, and for me, again, that I spent too much time for me thinking about that part of it rather than kind of enjoying the whole picture. I really beautifully crafted again. I like the blur of things. I like the things that are sharp, the texture of the wood in the right. It's a nice composition. So well done image. But this one got an 18.
Okay, let's see. Did we have a tie between number 6 and number 4?
We did, but I broke.
Okay.
So do you want me to give you the?
You can tell me which order you would like them.
Okay, so number 9, Rochelle, is number 1.
Right.
Number 6, it's all a downward spiral, is number 2.
Okay.
Egret, number 3.
And we have 2 18s.
And then Amanda with flower, which got 18 and a half.
Oh, okay. So
honorable mention.
Honorable mention, got you. Okay. We are ready. This is Amanda with Flower Diptych by Jim McInnes and honorable mention.
Interesting, Jim. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
This is Bridge Over the River Liner. I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly, but
that's correct.
Is it Liner? Okay.
Liner.
Tony,
It's in Cornwall, England.
Yeah, it's nice. It's one that I could look at that picture for a long time on my wall. It would give me pleasure. So
I really like the tonality in that.
Yeah, it's really nice work, Tony.
That, yeah, Tony. Burial Ground by Alan Upshaw.
Nice.
Where is that, Ellen?
It's Tumacacori, Arizona, near the Mexican border.
Nice. Yeah.
Nice. I like it.
Egret in 3rd place by Richard Russ. That's gorgeous.
It is.
Yeah.
It's
Really,
really nice.
I mean, capturing that bird, that pose is just stunning.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah.
Great photo.
Well, Richard is quite the birder, so.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, it's amazing.
Fork in the City by Ed E. Powell. I like
Put
the
the
humor
bird
in
right
that.
at the end there, Ed.
And until I saw this thing enlarged, I didn't realize what the focus was of. I go fork in the city. I'm looking for a road to fork off somewhere.
It's really about the fork, and
Yeah,
you
well,
get
now
it,
that I
you
see
really
it
you
in
get it
full
or you don't.
screen, yeah.
Yeah. It's all a downward spiral, and 2nd place by Elaine Calvert.
Nice going, Elaine.
Thank you.
Nice.
If you visited my neighbors in Napomo, or?
This was a town
All right.
where almost everything had collapsed, but I was just really drawn to how this had collapsed on itself, and I wanted to accentuate that spiral.
Yeah. Nice job.
I think you did a good capture.
Thank you.
Good job.
Sequoia Slot Canyon Entrance by Penny Powell.
Hopefully they're still standing.
That's spooky. Yeah. Chess by Tony Martindale.
Nice.
Rochelle, and our first place by Jim McInnes. Really beautiful.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Really nice image, Jim.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Love that single eye staring at you.
Yeah. Well done.
Yeah, I just don't like the bit on the right.
Valentine School by Ed E. Powell.
Is that where you graduated from high school, Ed?
Reform school.
Reform.
Where is that, Ed?
That's on Old Route 66.
East of Kingman.
East of Kingman, between Kingman and Seligman.
You were there when you were
How long
5
you
and-
were there?
You were there when you were 5 and then 25, Ed?
5 to 45.
So you go out yesterday.
Yeah.
Cam, you commented on images you'd seen in books about what looked like a reform school or a hospital. That was Tony Martindale.
Okay.
Yeah, Tony did those.
Preston
This is
Castle.
actually this school here was actually a school that our great fathers and political leaders set up for the people on the Indian reservation there. It was a school to teach the Indians how to be immigrants like us.
Yeah.
They didn't go over too well with the Indian population.
Well, I
but
hope
that's
they
where-
didn't follow the Canadian example.
Sure they did.
I know. Good. Yeah.
This is When It Rains, It Pours by Elaine Calvert.
Is that
And-
Soda Lake, Elaine?
This is actually, there's no water there. This is in the desert. This is at Death Valley.
Oh, okay.
And I darkened the bottom down because there was no detail. It was a pano, and when I stitched them together, I just didn't like the way the foreground looked, so I darkened it down. But
Yeah, it almost kind of looks like Soda Lake.
but yeah, it didn't occur to me that
No, it's a
gave it that sense of
incredible cloud
mystery.
you captured. Yeah.
It was just nice to see water in Death Valley.
Yeah.
This is Tammy by Jim McInnes.
Nice image. Kind of weird, but
Yeah,
weird.
very thought provoking.
I think it's really great, Jim. You've
Thanks.
gotten a much bigger score from me. I like the dynamic, the apparent dynamic between these two images of people. And I think the light is working real well. I just, I remember Dawn, I don't remember her last name, but Dawn talked about
Dawn
some months
David.
ago, how does it make you feel? And this one gives me a feeling. I think any photograph that can evoke an emotion or a feeling of some kind has a lot of merit. And this one gets there for me, Jim. Well done.
Oh, thanks, Ed.
Siamese twins.
That's the same girl.
All right.
Cam, I want to thank you. I thought that most of your comments were just right on the money.
Which ones weren't? Don't tell me. Don't tell me.
I said most. I mean, we all have our subjective opinions of things.
No, I think one of the things to remember is, and I tell my students this, and it actually was a lesson I learned from people I worked with and teachers I had who I did not agree with. And it was so helpful for me because it forced me to clarify my own opinions about my work. So I had to think about why I thought what I thought, and it really helped to have somebody to kind of push up against. So I always tell my students, you take what you can use from the comments you get and process them, and then get rid of things that don't help. And if there's anything that can help you, take that and use it. But it's just information. So.
Yeah, well, you're going to get a different opinion on any photograph from different people. It's always going to vary. And as you mentioned during your appraisal, you'll get a different opinion from the same person at different times. And that's just the way it is. If we all felt the same, there'd be one photograph, we'd all be looking at it and we'd be done with it. But I did definitely agree with you. The first place on both black and white and color, we were definitely in agreement with that. But you know, you can, again, it's the same thing. If you had each of us judge it, we'd probably have a whole bunch of different first places, and that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, but very good, helpful comments. I did want to tell Richard before he leaves that I loved his egret photo, and we tied in score. And I really, if I was judging, I probably would have given you second and me third. It was beautiful.
It was beautiful. Really
Yeah.
was.
I think that's a reddish egret that's been that was spent some time in Pismo, if I'm not mistaken. And they are notorious for running around and flapping their wings and getting into all kinds of awkward poses. And he just captured its personality beautifully.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was nice.
Very good. Very
Hey,
good.
Cheryl is she is unable to speak. I think she asked me to sort of close everything down.
I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Oh, you can hear you now. Yeah, loud and
I
clear.
had to go to my phone. I don't know what the deal is anyway, but I am here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So thank you, Cam. We appreciate it, and I think it's time to ring off.
Okay. Thanks for
I have a
inviting me.
question. Thank you.
Hey,
Okay.
I have
Cam,
a question before
Cam,
we all
thanks a lot.
disappear.
Really,
Check it
really,
in the post.
yeah, I'm really glad you could judge for us.
Yes,
Yeah.
thanks,
Thank
Yeah.
you.
We'd like to welcome you back anytime in the
Wait till he
future.
leaves then.
I appreciate it.
Definitely, definitely.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks a lot. See you all.
Good night.
Hey, Cam,
Bye.
Good
say
night.
hi to Vicky.
There he is.
All right. I will.
Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, Cheryl.
Who
Okay,
knows?
I'm gonna turn off
what's happening
recording
with
so you can
our,
now all
I
speak
think
the
next
truth.
week we're supposed to show our pictures from our books. If we're going to do that, where would I send photos of?